Payment and billing. Ooh, this
Yeah.
is the good one. Um, we touched on that, and really, it's important. Generally, you want to make sure you can survive it, right? Um, y- we like to look at these things as, am I in compliance through my normal course of business, right? And so, if you bill every 2 weeks and that's standard every 2 weeks, you want to make sure that it says, bi-monthly or bi-weekly or however it goes. Some of them will be at standard 30 days, where you bill monthly, and you may not want that. They may not fit. So you want to look at that. You want to look at your collections, when they're obligated to pay. Depending on the type of service company you have, you may have an interest tacked on for non-payment or late payment. Um, Personally, we have it in some of ours. We don't do it, but we've always got that stick, if somebody's late with payment. But you want to know what's there. Typically in that billing, you'll have some level of instruction too, hey, that requires you to use X system. You got to submit through open invoice, or you have to submit, using these codes, and it allows you at least kind of talking about the rules of the game. It gets that administrative process defined in your agreement. So really want to study through that so you don't start throwing out your invoices, for the first 3 or 4 or 5 months and realize you haven't collected because all your stuff's been voided. It can cause some major problems at the beginning of a project not getting paid if you don't do that right. So from our standpoint, that's what we're really trying to focus on.
Yeah, and a lot of them too will contain provisions that, even if you contest some of the work, you still got to pay for the work you don't contest and what those are and everything else.
Mhm.
And, if you do contest some of the work, there's a procedure that you need to go through, and you've got to send an email and notification to this particular person at this particular time. And you've only got, so long to challenge it. Otherwise it's, considered you accepted. And there are all kinds of terms in there and everything. And you just want to be very clear about what it is. Aside from the business decision, again, I only see it when things go wrong, right? So there's that of like, okay, when things, if and when things go wrong, what do we do on that end? Because, uh, people will say, well, you didn't meet your obligations to properly notify us and to properly challenge that you had an issue with this invoice or anything else. So you've waived it, and so you're just out.
Tough.
And yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's other words to be used there that all start with, that all have 4 letters, but it's just that function of make sure you know again what it is your responsibility is. Doing the work isn't always enough. You've got to know the proper protocols of using their software, putting it through their system, coding it. You've got to put an invoice number on it. You've got to put a client on it. You've got to, do all of these things, and it's a little hoop jumping, but at the end of the day, it's your business. So jump, my friend. You jump through the hoops if that's what you got to do.
Eat your greens, boy.
That's it. That's it.
um, Warranties.
Yeah.
Typically, most service agreements or you, Dudley Land Company, will warrant everything. You warrant this, you warrant that. And we always try to avoid it. Oftentimes the nature of our work is it's not warranted. There are a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of decisions you have to make. And again, I'm speaking from the land services, the landman's hat, the field landman's hat. Um, there are certain assumptions you have to make. And there's certain uncertainty in title, uncertainty in the things you might do because you're always trying to balance urgency with accuracy, and then cost, right? You can spin your wheels and spin your wheels to try to, get something perfect such that you can warrant it. But when it boils down to it, we're not attorneys. That's what Oliva Gibbs is for. They'll warrant all day. They may not, but you want to that's something you need to look at. You want to make sure that if it's saying you will warrant your product and you will warrant the title you do, or you won't get paid, or you're subject to, even more so, you're subject to damages for a mistake or a misinterpretation. That's a big deal when you're talking about a client who's drilling a $12 million well, right? And so, you need to be cognizant of it. You want to make sure that, you've at least read through that and it's not over or unrealistically burdensome on you as a service provider. If it is, and they're not willing to change, it's the business risk.
Yeah, and to your point is, some of these folks that have the same MSA for landmen for folks that are providing equipment out of the well site or whatever. And so, look, I can understand that in equipment, if you're providing actual equipment, why there may be some warranties that are there, right? Like, so they're going
They
to be
protect.
operable and they're
Yep.
going to, be up with codes, everything. But has a has it been the situation where a service provider, like how you provide services, I provide services, I can't guarantee you any result. I would love to. I would love to look in my magic ball and tell you I can guarantee that this is going to be the result of this case, and it doesn't happen that way. The same way all of the things you're talking about, but has it been a company like yours that's been in that situation where they signed the equipment deal and it says I warrant the services and products that I'm going to provide, and that definition is broad enough to include it, and it's gone and they weren't right, and it's like, well, you warranted it, so now it's on you. Absolutely, it's why we have jobs, and I said it's why I have jobs, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it happens all the time. So just take a look at it and make sure that it applies to you to the extent that you can warrant anything. And I don't know that we can in our line of business that we can warrant anything because it's not mechanical and we don't know the information that's out there. It's like saying, I'm going to guarantee you I'm going to drill here and we're going to get oil or gas. Gotta,
Gusher. Gonna be a
yeah,
gusher.
yeah, that's it. Spend the top part too.
I'm not saying that landman can't guarantee. We got to do what we got to do, but in the terms of an MSA, you want to avoid it if you can, at
Correct.
least if it's unrealistic. Let's see, change orders. Yeah, change orders, force majeure. I mean, so realistically, in the oil and gas space, you don't see change orders very much. Typically, and I'm speaking just from the landman's experience, you set the general scope of work, you set the general area you're going to do it, and you go to work. It's a fluid process. And it's great. It's you could tell it's very refined. It's 100 years of companies and field guys working together, understanding that we're going to have to be nimble, we're going to have to adapt, and it works fine. Where we do tend to see it is more in like the bigger, like a right of way job. Hey, you're going to do this, and you're working with an engineering firm who's set a not to exceed, and they're going to receive payment not to exceed X. Well, you may get down the line, they add 6 more miles of pipe, or you had to do a reroute, and you might need to do a change order to adjust your receivable amount. We do unfortunately see it a lot in the renewable space. It's an emerging industry. They're very engineer. They're very used to dealing with construction companies and this, that, and the other on these sites, and they don't provide the flexibility. So as ridiculous as it sounds, it's very common that we give a $2,000 estimate to run title on a tractor to a land, and it costs us $2,500 to do it, and we have to go through a whole change order process. It's a nightmare. Everybody hates it. Everybody's miserable to do it. So avoid change orders if you can. When applicable, it's just really what you want to think about. Is this meaningful? Try to strike it if you can, just from a practicality standpoint. But if it's a big enough job and you're concerned about payment, maybe you want that structure. So yeah, you just got to think about what you're doing and who your clients are.
Yeah, and to that end, I'm always a fan of something in writing is better. Like a lot of these MSAs will have specific procedures about change orders and how that all looks. But even if it's like, hey man, I know we talked today, and I appreciate now instead of 2,000, it's going to be $2,500. Send an email to that
Yeah.
effect, just of a, hey, I appreciate it, like we said, and you guys agreed, so we're going to move forward. Because when it blows up, if it blows up, then it's not, well, no, I talked to Steve and Steve said it was okay. Well, Steve's long gone, right? Steve
Yeah.
is no longer there.
Steve has amnesia all of a sudden.
And if Steve is there, Steve's not going to remember that he okayed outside of his chain of command for you to continue on and everything else. Like,
Yeah.
it's again, while everything is going fast and furious and everybody wants to get the work done and get drilling and get pumping and everything else, man, everybody's holding hands and it's kumbaya and it's like, yeah, I got you, and everything. And then as it slows down, as it always does, everybody starts looking and like, wait, if we pay $2,500 when we only agreed to two, and that's where we get involved. And if there's an email, look, it doesn't follow the exact protocol of the change order. Okay, no, but it makes it much harder for me to be like, I don't know what they're talking about. Like, and it makes it more difficult to say that with an honest face. And so, even though it doesn't happen often, quick emails, I have a entirely different talk and I can spend 3 hours on it as to why we should avoid text messages. But if that's the way you got to go to, I mean, just something just quick to note it.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.